In this episode, I was joined by one of the earliest big movers and shakers in the Upland Metaverse, who has gone on to become one of the most controversial characters in the Upland community, DJ Shortz. DJ came into Upland hard and fast, quickly making a name for himself as an insatiable whale, particularly in the minting out of San Francisco. He played a big role in the early formation of the node concept in Upland, went on to do huge community events related to his development of the Sunset neighborhoods, had one of the most successful early Upland-related YouTube channels, and was also a massive early supporter of the Spark, NFLPA, and blockchain heroes economies. Then things started to go sideways, which ultimately led to him being banned, blacklisted, and banished from large swathes of the Upland community, and apparently even the Upland Metaverse platform itself. My own personal history with DJ Shortz has been a complex one, with us riding some pretty significant highs together to some very spiteful and at times ugly falling outs, both public and private. We touch on all of that, of course, today, along with loads of historical and contemporary perspectives on the space. Join us today as we explore the complex legacy of DJ Shortz and what it truly means to take giant swings in the metaverse and beyond.
Warning, the information and opinions within are solely the views of the individuals involved, contains content not suitable for anyone.
All right, here with the one and only, the now, what would you say, the notorious DJ Shortz. How are we doing this morning, mate?
I'm doing well, Ben. How are you?
Pretty good, mate. Pretty good. First and foremost, just want to say thank you for being willing to jump in. We kind of touched on it a little bit before we got kicked off here that you and I have some pretty complex history, shall we say? some very high highs and some very low lows.
That's one way of putting it, for sure. We have history. You can definitely say we have history.
Yes. Now, your name is out there as probably, what's it been? Probably the last 18 months where you've been on the peripheral. Would that be fair?
Give or take. That's a good rough estimate.
Yeah, so there's a lot of new people in the space that may hear some of the older folks, whisperings of DJ Shortz, and I think you're pretty famous most recently for your guerrilla YouTube videos where they're there 1 minute, catch them while they're there. I very rarely get to see some of those myself, so that there's still been some echoes of DJ Shortz, in the community and out there, but a lot of people don't know the very intense, long history that you had before of, all of the stuff that's kind of panned out in the last 18 months.
Sure. Well, I'm happy to dive into that if you'd like.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack. So the usual general thing is, who are you? How'd you get into the space? All that sort of stuff. As much as you're willing to say, I believe there's snake breeding or something in your past, military serviceship or something. Forgive my poor memory.
Yeah, both of those things are accurate. That is true. So I'll start in 2016. 2016 is when I got introduced to cryptocurrency for the first time. I think I heard of Bitcoin, right when it came out, but I just thought, oh, this is a scam. Why would I want to get internet money? And then, fast forward a few years later, 2016, got started. Actually, before I ever bought cryptocurrency, I started mining with my friend, just using GPUs, mining Ethereum. So yeah, I really never looked back from it at that point. Kind of got in at the lows and did well with it. Of course, in 2017, when everything crashed, I had no idea it was coming, and I at the time I was thinking, wow, this is incredible, it's going to go up forever. And then it crashed, and that was actually the time that I was joining the military. So I went into the military and kind of put cryptocurrency on I joined the Air Force. I was active duty Air Force for 3 years. I did a successful deployment to the Middle East. And then while I was in the military the whole time, I never forgot about cryptocurrency. And after that crash, I was actually able to get back in the lows and got some Bitcoin and held on to it while I was doing my service. And then we all know what came next, the epic bull run. And that was kind of when I got into Upland, and I was looking for new projects, and I just saw it pop up on Brave one day. I was just scouring the internet, and I thought, wow, this is interesting. And they had the USD out, which was really appealing to me. I thought, wow, this is something that's different, and started doing a little bit of research, and got in. And I started with $100, and before you know it, I was like the 5th chief executive in the game. So it didn't take long. I think within 2 or 3 months, I was already chief executive, or close. So I started in a big way, and that had never really been seen in the community. Nobody had really entered in that kind of way before. And I'm sure that you could add to that. You were there for most of that. Me and you were kind of doing our thing, and some other people too at that point in time. So what else?
Well, I was going to ask, because I was looking at your charts before and kind of getting ready for this, trying to track your history, and you did come out like a bull at a gate, or whatever the term is. So that's interesting. Yeah, I tried to look if you'd done that move prior to the USD out, but you're saying when you came in, USD out was an option.
No, I put the money in before USD out was an option.
Yeah, I thought so. All right. Well, yeah, let's unpack that, because like you said, and I put it down in one of my notes, you were one of the first big players who not only talked up a big game with big ideas, but you also put your money where your mouth is in a big way. And that was long before that became normalized. Prior to you, there was Dizzy Disky and a few other people that had significant, like UPX net worths or whatever, but that had been built up over a bit of time. Whereas you just came like screaming out of the blue. So for people that aren't aware of that, I will bring up your charts here. This is care of UPX Land. So when did you get in? So you got in March 3rd, 2021. So that was, a year and change after it had all kind of started to take on. So the community at that stage was small, but it was pretty well established. We had the usual players, everybody knew what was what, who was going to buy where, sort of thing. But then, you just came out the gate and holy mama, look at this chart. So started off, and within, I think I had a look before, 3 weeks it was. Within 3 weeks, your net worth was over 50 million UPX. So that's I don't know what my net worth was at the time. It might have been, I would have been an executive. So mine might have been, I don't know, maybe 12 million or something like that. But that had been built up over a year's worth of buying, selling, trading, dividends, and all this sort of stuff. But yeah, you just smoked past a whole bunch of people with a significant cash injection.
Yes, that sounds pretty accurate. I think it actually, at the time, I was really, and I still think this, I think it was the right play. I really do. I think I was early, and it wasn't, I wasn't there at the very beginning, but it was still pretty close. And I really saw those unminted properties sitting in San Francisco, and I could just kind of see where the future was going. And I just thought, wow, this is an opportunity to get in kind of in a big way on an early project. And I didn't know what I was really doing. I had an idea generally, but definitely a big risk. But like I said, I've been in the crypto space for years and years before this, and I've gone through scams, I've lost money and stuff like that. So I was prepared for that to be a possibility.
Yep. Yeah. So not only you didn't stop there. Basically, I mean, look at that chart from the net worth. It's just bonkers. That first dot just goes ballistic, and then you were, what are you there? So you hit. Yeah, you would have hit chief executive just pretty much at the end of the month. So within a month, you've gone from 0 to chief executive, which is in USD terms is 100,000 USD equivalent, in air quotes. So yeah, came in just like screaming out of the blue, and everybody at the time was like, who the hell is this guy? So yeah, made a big splash. Now, we had been, you pinged me on pretty early as part of some of the strategic plays you were looking at buying into, and just kind of getting a feel for what was happening in the community and that sort of stuff. Maybe, I don't know, maybe you can speak to how small the community was back in those days, and how it was kind of pretty cliquey, and it was kind of very kind of little niche groups everywhere.
Yeah, it's almost night and day from where it is now, or where I imagine it to be now. I've removed myself a little bit the past year or so.
Yep.
But even before I left, it was so much different than when I joined. Yeah, it was almost like every single property transaction people were noting back at that time, because I think it was just San Francisco and Manhattan, if I'm not mistaken. It was just those two cities. So
Well, it might have
it
been
was a lot.
Fresno, maybe. I don't know. But
I
yeah.
think you're right. Yeah, but it was a lot less properties to keep track of, and a lot less cities. So yeah, it was definitely a different situation than what is currently happening, for sure.
Yeah. Now I had last night before I went to bed, I had a bit of a look, did a bit of searching on the Discords to look back in time and see some of the not, I was going to say tweets, but some of the posts that were mentioned back then. There's a few that stood out. I've got one 27th of March by Heavily Bills, and he's got here, there was a conversation about, it might have been big movers and shakers in the area, and Heavily Bills has said, there's two people so far, DJ Shortz and Dizzy Diski. DJ Shortz joined the 50,000 USD club on March 20th. So that kind of just reflects what we're saying. And then there's another one here from Nubex, which is a classic, and that's on the 23rd of March, so a few days prior. There was some discussion about minting in San Francisco, and he's got DJ Shortz minted 1,690 properties in Outer Sunset, which even just that property count at that stage there was not many people that had that many properties. So there would have been Dizzy, TM, yourself, and I don't know that there was many others that had. I certainly didn't have that many properties. I don't believe at that early stage, because that was pre-UDU. That's pre all the big push for San Francisco.
As far as what other people had, I don't really remember. I was just going for what I thought made the most sense at that time, and Sunset specifically was unminted collection properties in San Francisco. So I was just gobbling those up, and the Too Stupid and TML were pushing Sunset, so that was also part of it.
Yeah, I mean it's maybe and people nowadays, they don't really get that aspect where there was just vast swathes of San Francisco, like the majority of Manhattan, aside from the the prime locations in financial district and whatever, they were just left there unminted for weeks and months, and you could just pick and choose at will what you wanted. It was just all within your own budget, where nowadays it's just scramble for what you can get as far as collections and what.
Oh yeah, it was totally different. You could take your time, you could get pretty much whatever you wanted, and even most of the markups were still pretty reasonable. So if there's something you wanted, you could probably make a deal for it at a reasonable price.
Yeah, well, I used to do every now and then when I'd be chasing something that I wanted to buy in Manhattan, and I'd go and sell 100 inner Richmond or outer Richmond properties for 3,500 UPEX each. It's just crazy, crazy times.
I think I picked up a couple of those.
Yes. So after all that happened, so you pushing then towards the end of March 2021, and that's when I started the whole Midtown Terrace push. You joined in for that, and then of course you were yourself and in Venom at the time, who he was another player that kind of just seemed to come out the blue and started splashing money around and making big moves as well. We all got together as part of a thing, and that's where that whole UDU concept came together, as part of taking that. There had been that neighborhood development mentality out there that had pre-existed it, but this was taking that to the next level, where we were coordinating different neighborhoods into the node concept. That has since been completely bastardized as a concept in the community, and one single thing, you can have a building and call it your node or whatever. But yeah, maybe speak to that process of how those early days of that involvement, and kind of the hype and we as a group, the UDU, we came out the blue and just blew people away. People were kind of worried that we were going to monopolize the whole game, and we were kind of jokingly going for that. And got a lot of people's noses out of joint at the time too, and we kind of loved it.
It was a blast. Honestly, that was a ton of fun. That was probably some of the best times I had in Upland. And to kind of put a picture to it, at that time, That's when the bull market was raging. Bitcoin was pumping, the stocks were pumping, everything was pumping to the moon. And, you know, it was just a crazy time in general. And Upland was also experiencing craziness in its own unique way. And I think what we were looking for an idea of what to do with these properties, like what makes sense. What are we going to do? Now we've got these properties. What are we going to do with them? And then you came and had the node idea, and it instantly clicked with me. And I thought, wow, this is a great idea. This is definitely what we should do. And so I jumped in right away with you, and we started doing the UDU thing, and Venom jumped into, and I think it was us three who minted out San Francisco.
Yeah, it was just turned out the last 3 properties that minted was us 3. It was hilarious. Yeah,
that was pretty cool. So it was me and you and Venom. We closed out the first Upland city. So that's a pretty cool thing, and that's gonna stand forever, Upland history. So that was really cool, and it just kind of part of the excitement at the time. It just all snowballed into what it was. And yeah, we started with your node there, Midtown Terrace, and then we moved over to other nodes, and some of them were more successful than others, but it was an experiment. It was a learning process, and there was a lot of things. We weren't certain that this was the best thing to do, but we all agreed it sounded like a good plan, and we put a lot of energy and effort into moving that forward.
Yeah, and that's those last 3 properties in San Francisco, that was at the tail end of something that we'd been doing for a few months there, where we were going in coordinated strikes and just destroying neighborhoods. Just in Venom's, what did he call it? The Sea of Blue or something. I think one of the early interviews he did with Uplando or something. Yeah, we would coordinate and say, okay, now we're going to do, it was Balboa Terrace or Lone Mountain, and we'd just go in and just decimate these places, just minting them up like a firestorm.
Absolutely. And we'd take turns too. We'd switch off. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I miss those days.
Yeah, do you remember that was back when TML was running his own fan server, and there was a tracking bot there that you could see what people were minting, and we would deliberately, there was people that were following that bot and following us because they'd heard about this node concept, and they were trying to jump in to mint up these properties with us to then flip them to us at a premium. So we were deliberately setting false flags and all that sort of stuff. So,
absolutely. Had to play the game.
Yeah, so there was a hell of a lot of fun in those early days. And then, of course, pretty early on, we kicked off and started doing team meetings and that sort of stuff. And you were instrumental in the early days of setting that up. Like I ran the first one, and then as I put it over to you, I'm like, do you want to take this over? Because this is not something I'm comfortable at all doing with. And you just kind of picked that up and ran with it.
Yeah, I was grateful for the opportunity, and it was a great learning experience, and got to connect with a lot of interesting and cool people through that experience. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
And then, of course, you started your own YouTube channel, and that was probably one of the most successful early YouTube channels. I remember you interviewed Edan and other big players like Octavius and all sorts of stuff. And you used to put a lot of content out there as far as, general information stuff. You also ran a lot of competitions and giveaways. Maybe speak to that whole process.
Absolutely. Yeah. In the spirit of, growing and growing my channel and growing with Upland, and learning and exploring and experimenting and trying to connect with people. And yeah, it was fun. It was a fun experience.
Yes. Now, what have I got here next? So that's one of the things I saw. This might have been semi-recently. There was conversations happening about purchasing landmarks, and we have seen, like, probably over the last 2 years, other big players like Abdullah or whatever is just cleaning them up, or there's other, I think it's Maddox or somebody will buy the landmark and then flip it to Abdullah or something at a profit. But back in those early days, landmarks would sit there and nobody was putting bids in for the auction. Didn't you pick up one or a couple of those where you were the only bid or something like that? I thought I read something.
So there was two realistically that I could have gotten, and I passed on the first one. That was in San Francisco. The one up in the northeast corner, the name is escaping me right now.
Oh, not the ferry building or whatever, is it? That big one?
No,
or
it's Coit Tower.
Coit Tower, yeah.
They dropped that one not too long after I joined. I can't remember if Venom was around at the time or not, but I definitely could have gotten that one, but I passed because the collections that it could have filled.
Yes.
The boost on that one isn't great. I think the only one you can put it in is City Pro. And then so the next one that came out, I'm not sure if you know this whole part of the story, but the next one was the big one in Manhattan. The 40 million mint one. That name is escaping me as well. What was the stock building or well, anyways,
yeah,
I'm sure
it's on the tip of
sure
my
we'll
tongue,
think of
that
it.
one. Yeah. Rockefeller
Right.
Center, is that it?
Rockefeller, thank
Yeah.
you. So I'm not sure if you know this part of the story, but me and Venom were on a side chat debating who was going to go for the Rockefeller Center, and we both loaded the money, and he got it before me. I was going to go for that one because that one had the full boost. I think 3 or 2.9. You know, I don't remember exactly, but he ended up getting it, and yeah, I wish I could have got that one. But after that, the competition was starting to heat up, and I never even went after any of the other ones.
Yeah, that was a tricky situation because, yeah, you had to have the UPX, you had to have it loaded up, ready to go. So if you missed it, well, then you're sitting there with 50 million UPX burning a hole in your pocket, and you don't want it sitting there doing nothing. So, yeah, you start the sweats, I'd imagine.
Oh, yeah. May have contributed to some extra minting.
Yes, absolutely. So that's interesting. Now, the Coit Tower, what did you think about the whole process of some of the buildings that came out for those? I think that Ferry Road building that's on it might be in the financial district. That looks really cool. The Coit Tower bloody thing, when that came out, I was like, it looks tiny. It looks kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, once I saw it, I was happy that I didn't go for that one. It doesn't look great. Yeah,
Dodged a bullet, perhaps.
I think so.
Yes. All right. So, yeah, back in those early days with Venom, I had lots of chats with him one-on-one. I know you did. We had lots of three-way calls and this, that, and the other thing. And then he kind of just got completely sidetracked with his Green Rabbit project and went in that direction. But before that, there was that whole thing with Up Squared Land and all the promises that he was putting out there about that. We were finally going to have property management tools. You remember he had on one of those early UDU meetings, he got his Indian developer in and he was showing us the cards and how we were going to be doing all that stuff. I look back at that times and think, that was such a missed opportunity. With everything else that came to light afterwards, I'm not fully aware if that was just pure bullshit. Was that all smoke and mirrors, or I don't know? Do you have a line on any of that sort of things?
I mean, what he's to explain it as simply as I can. What Venom told me was that the API access that he could get was not what he needed to make what he wanted to do happen, and I kind of just left it at that because he was a bit frustrated about the whole thing as well. I'd like to believe that his intentions were he was going to do what he said he was going to do. What the truth is, I'm not sure, but it was definitely a mess.
Yeah, well, we said at the time, like if this comes to fruition, it's going to completely revolutionize the game, and we're all on board, which it still would have done. And what are we? I'm about to start my 5th year in Upland, and we still don't have property management tools, and that's what that whole thing was back then. So
it's frustrating.
Yeah. So, what about because I know, remember that there was that whole thing where I think it was part of the Up Squared Land, and it might have been, it was after he'd minted that Rockefeller Center. Didn't he like get a private jet and flew to San Francisco and met up with them and that whole thing?
I met him down in LA. I didn't get on the private jet, but
that's right.
I remember seeing the pictures. I think that's what happened.
Yeah. So yeah, there was very, very unique times, shall we say. All right, so we'll go back and have a look at your chart again. So Now, one of the things that really sticks out with your chart is the big discrepancy between your mint net worth and your property's net worth. So what that tells me is that not only were you prepared to, first of all, put a lot of money into the thing to get going, but you were also prepared to put a lot of money into buying up the secondary with a long-term vision of, obviously you wouldn't be doing that unless you thought it was going to have future value down the track. You were taking a kind of maybe a high-risk gamble, but that it was going to pay off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, after I minted all those properties, it made sense for me to keep going after the secondary market. Definitely a high risk gamble, and it did kind of end up biting me in the butt there. But yeah, I said to myself, the property earnings are great, but the capital gains earnings are even better. Yeah. So if I just kind of chase, and at that point in time, they definitely were the capital gains earnings were blowing property earnings out of the water. And of course things change, but that was my thought. And then to further consolidate that thought, it was San Francisco to me. It's the Genesis city, and it's special, and it'll always be special. And no matter how many more cities they come out with, San Francisco is always going to be the first one. So I was happy to keep investing in San Francisco and solidify my original. And then it didn't start off this way, but it turned into a treasure map. So yes. What I ended up doing, I was happy to keep filling in spots on my treasure map. And by the time I was finished, I had a pretty tight treasure map there in San Francisco. It was down to about a half a cent average per treasure.
Well, yeah, I can only just imagine. Like, what are you looking at here? So properties, pretty quickly you were up around the 4,000 or 5,000 property range, and of course you had a bunch in Oakland. You would have had some in Manhattan, but you were a significant percentage of those was San Francisco for the treasure map.
I was like 95% San Francisco. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I kind of bought into that whole. When Upland first came out, it was San Francisco is always going to be the Genesis city. It's the golden child. San Francisco first, and then other things. But the history since then has, I don't know if that's just been lost and forgotten, but there's so many things now where San Francisco seems almost a bit of an afterthought. I know as somebody that started way back then, that often gets me scratching my head, face palming, sucking my teeth. There's many ways you could describe that.
What's the old saying? If I knew then what I know now.
Yeah. Wow.
So I would have definitely done things a bit differently, but I still think it was a pretty decent play at the time.
Yeah. So, well, what's some of the things that you would have done different? Now, I know for myself, like when Manhattan first released, I kind of went in dribs and drabs there, and I put in a bit of extra funds via the crypto passover, like you could trade in crypto for UPX or whatever. So I work with FSA agents there to kind of buy up a lot of the cheap floor, but that was after Dizzy and a few other people had free reign for a month or more to just scoop up. Like you're talking Manhattan's minting for 2,000, 3,000 UPX back in the day. So that's if I know now what I knew, or however you bloody say it, if I could go back in time, shall we say, yeah, I would just go gangbusters in Manhattan.
Oh, for sure. I would have too.
Yeah. Yes. And then,
I mean, for as far as a monetary gain or, as far as growing more quickly, Manhattan would have beat San Francisco for sure every time.
Yes. And then we did see too that the market there got kind of purposely manipulated. That's the only way you can say it. You were talking about, I forget, was it Manhattan selling for 100 USD and high 100,000 UPXs, and now we're looking, even now the UPX prices got back quite high. I think it's the last podcast I did, it was 80,000, but the USD floor is like $30, $35. It's crazy how that's dropped.
I remember seeing Manhattan over 250,000 and no properties cheaper
That's
than
right.
that.
Yeah.
And it was a short time period, but it definitely happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, aside from that, anything else as far as like those early moves you would have made that you would have maybe gone in a bit heavier somewhere or a bit less somewhere else?
I would have played the dividends game a little bit more. I had especially at that point in time, I had an opportunity to get some collections that would now be very difficult to get. So I probably would have chased those a little bit harder, but yeah, mostly would have diversified a bit more.
Yeah, well, I played that game and I got screwed on that too. So I was all in on dividends. I think it was December 2021. I finally cracked 2 million UpX per month dividends. And within weeks, they cut the rate from whatever it was, 17 to 14, and I dropped way back down. So I'm right on the cusp again. I think I've got another 24,000 UPX, and I'll back to the 2 mil. And I put it out a couple of weeks on the UPX. I keep saying UPX podcast, but on the Upland Down Under podcast, that maybe on the mocker for that. As soon as I tick over 2 million again, what do you know? They'll slam it down again. So it'd be funny if that happens.
You got to stay one UpX under just for the community's sake.
Yeah, maybe that's the thing. Yeah, so we'll have to go and visit a witch doctor or something if I do go over to get some better vibes going on. So yeah, I did go all in on the dividends, and yeah, of course that has helped a lot. But yeah, it was frustrating to see that come through. As far as predictions for where we're going to go next with the dividend rate, I know you've been kind of out of the loop for a while, but given the general market sentiment that's out there, in real life situation, we've got Bitcoin and other cryptos just starting to move now. But I don't know what it's like in the States, but we've had, I don't know, a dozen or so interest rate rises in a row. It's been plateaued. I think the last couple of times they could have raised it, they didn't. I'm personally expecting that we still got way more pain to come, like heaps more. I don't think we've even scratched the surface.
As far as real world or Upland
in real life stuff, yeah.
I agree. Generally speaking, the markets don't crash while they're hiking interest rates. They crash after they start easing interest rates or slashing interest rates, and that hasn't started yet. So if history is any indicator, then it should be expected that when the US Fed starts to cut rates, that's when we should expect the pain in the markets to start.
Yeah. And that does bleed through. Now, you're kind of a prime example of something that I always mention when I talk about this sort of Web3 in real life, the market correlation there. What we've typically seen, even though it is a very short history, what we've typically seen is if the in real life markets, like the traditional, stocks and bonds or whatever you want to talk about, if they're doing well, then some of that profit bleeds off into crypto, that pumps, and if that's doing well, then that bleeds off to NFTs. Upland was a prime example, and that sort of stuff. Is that your kind of vibe on the whole situation?
Yeah, the traditional markets have been around for so long, and they kind of do what they do, and they're basically controlled by the banks. Whether or not you want to say it that simply or not, that's kind of what it comes down to, in my opinion, at least. And so I like to relate things back to Bitcoin because it's kind of its own wild beast, and it tends to do what it wants to do. But it seems like the traditional markets in Bitcoin are starting to come to that boiling point where they're either going to merge together in some sort of way, or one is going to triumph over the other. And I'm not sure that's the best way to say it, but it looks like that's where we're heading. And Bitcoin really is still chugging along. It looks pretty good. It doesn't look like it's been defeated by any means, and it's back up there into the 40,000s wherever it fluctuates a lot, but so it's a lot of money for one Bitcoin, that's for sure. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see what actually comes of it all. But I do agree, when the markets start to get heated is when we see I'll call Upland an alternative investment.
Yep.
That's when we see those alternative investments really start to do well again, is when the traditional markets and Bitcoin are doing well. And it's actually after they've done as good as they're going to do is when we'll see the alternative markets do as good as they're going to do. So probably after Bitcoin makes its next all-time high, assuming it makes a new all-time high, I would imagine 6 to 12 months after that is when you'll see your altcoins popping off.
Yep. Yeah. And then, but on the flip side of that, like if the alternative investments like Upland and whatnot, if they're the last to pump, they are the first to jump. If there's any sort of in real life pain, and this I can speak from exact personal experience myself, like probably 6 to 8 months ago when those interest rates started to kick in and we had some credit card debt at the time. I was like, look, we just need to get this smashed out so that we're a bit safer with the mortgage payments and that. So I sold some stuff in Upland, probably cheaper than I would have preferred to. And I sold it, certainly a lot more of it than I was kind of comfortable at the time. And yeah, it's kind of last to pump, first to dump. I guess that's how I'd say.
Generally speaking, yeah, that's pretty much.
Yes. So yeah, as I said, I think there's a whole bunch of stuff still to get shaken out of there in the traditional markets and that. So we're being very conservative, I'd just say, on the home front budget with the in real life budget.
Yeah, with real life, I think there's a lot of things that could still go wrong that would send the markets down in a hurry.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So going back to kind of the big moves and investments that you did make. Now, it wasn't only properties that you went, big time on. You were also, again, I think team's a classic example. The early NFLPA system, from memory, you went pretty heavy and pretty significant on that in the early days as well.
Yeah, so the NFLPA legits were some of the first things that you could buy for UPIX that was not properties. Yeah. And it wasn't the very first 2020s. Those were USD mostly, I think. But when they changed that over the next year, I went in, I think I did about 10 million UPIX worth of those things. So that was, I went in pretty hard.
What was your kind of vision for that? Was that looking to, because at the time the kind of what do you want to call it? The blue chip NFT markets, Bored Ape Yacht Club and all of that was kind of kicking off. We did see at the time too, was that when the NFT portal was open, or was that would have been prior to the NFT portal, wouldn't it?
I think that you could bring in block explorers, but I would have to double check that timeline.
Yeah. So
definitely couldn't take them out.
Yeah. So was the play there because remember what was the other one? There was the basketball NFT project, and some of the prices on those, I know T Davis and them were just making mad money on those.
Top Shots.
Top Shots, yeah. So was that your kind of thinking that, you're taking a gamble that this might be the future equivalent of that?
Partially. I was looking at it as something that I could potentially make money at, but I also thought it would just be something fun, more of a hobby side of things. And I was hoping to make money at it, but I had limited expectations.
Yep. And did you, we've seen your property numbers drop right off there too. Have you held onto those? Have you sold of those, or what have you done there?
I've still got a couple hundred left, but I've sold most of them.
Yep. So that was the NFLPAs. Now you did mention the block heroes, isn't it? That was the what do they call them? The Bad Crypto podcast. That was their whole deal. You went pretty heavy on those, buying those up on the Wax blockchain.
I did. After they came out, they kind of had the classic pump, and then they just trickled down and down and down. And as they kept falling in prices, I would just go on Wax and buy the individual cards, and I was buying them really cheap. I can't remember the exact prices I was paying, but I was pretty much just buying the common cards and a few rare ones here and there. But I was able to stack up hundreds of those very cheap.
And did you move any of those through the portal?
All of them.
Oh, really? Yeah. And that's that. Now we have seen that open seas come out and you can get them out. Did that all happen after you'd kind of moved away?
Right. Yeah. I wasn't around when they created the out part.
Yeah. I still haven't moved a single one in. Like I bought up a fair few of those common ones as well. I think the floor might have been like 1-2 whacks, and I got maybe 40 or 50 of them. And I thought, I'll just see what happens here, or even just to, in-home experiences like my property in Upland. I'll just plaster the walls with these things, which is another thing that we're still waiting on all this time later. So yeah, that's going to be frustrating to put that kind of investment in, and then they're kind of stuck in there, jammed up in there. So they're still all sitting in your account.
They're just sitting in there. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So, and then of course,
yeah.
you were also big on the block explorers. You went ham gobbling all those up as well.
Yep.
Including,
yep.
I believe
I did that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, including you, I think you were one of the first people that started to invest in buying up the secondary one-of-one block explorers, like other people's director block explorers.
I did have a good handful of those at one time. Yes, I thought maybe they're one of one, so they'd be more unique. And yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about block explorers anymore. I was expecting utility for them by now, and we just never really got around to the utility part. So we'll see what happens.
Yes, I was talking to somebody recently, and I've kind of putting it out there that we got to stop saying soon, and we need to start using eventually. Eventually, it might happen.
One day.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Because they were at that time, they were talking about giving the block explorers stats for their drivers for the cars, and that's when cars were coming out, and that's when I started going into them kind of heavy. I always had a small collection, but yeah, I thought, wow, it's a good chance to get my hand on some of these early ones and see what comes of it. But yeah, just waiting.
Yes. Yeah, I've got a swag of them myself, but I've got them all up for sale at just kind of stupid prices in my Block Explorer MetaVenture shop. If they sell, they sell. If they don't, they don't, sort of thing. So I'll just wait and see. There is still talk about that with the racing. I believe that will come to fruition, hopefully in 2024. But it's just one of those things. I have to wait and see. Now, backtracking a little bit. Now you said you built a Spark web. I believe I had a look before. You got 20 Spark or something like that. Is that the sound about right?
Just a bit over 20. Yep.
Now, were you part of the original snapshot, or did you miss that for the first airdrop?
I was part of I didn't get Spark when you got Spark, but I didn't have to wait too long after.
Yeah.
So
that was another significant investment where you put, we had the node concept, and we were all about building as much as we could with the information that we had at hand as fast as we could. So the Spark rates, I shake my head looking back at now, the Spark rates for renting Spark at the time, I think I've spent like 40 million UPEX building out Midtown Terrace. Like I could probably do that for 5 million nowadays. It's just incredible how that's all gone. But yeah, big investor in the early Spark, and a big kind of believer in the whole develop these properties projects. And you talk about waiting for things that are going to come eventually. Well, one of the things that I'm always saying is, well, what's the point of this? Like, why are we building this shit? Is it for utility? And the classic comeback is already, well, you've already got utility. You can apply for a MetaVenture. I'm like, yeah, that's not kind of right. Yeah. Technically, that's true, but morally and ethically, I'm not so sure about that.
I agree. I agree with you. And it's really still hard to fathom what is the use case for these buildings. What are we going to do with hundreds of thousands of buildings that are basically empty, just sitting there? What's the utility there? But yeah, at the time I kind of did what you did. I was gung ho. I think I threw up like 20 apartments in South of Market, and man, the rate at that time, I think I was paying 400,000 UPIX per apartment.
Yeah.
So I got slaughtered there too.
Yeah, it's crazy to look back on that. How much of that, like I've kind of reflected on this myself a bit too. How much of that disconnect between, you know, what we as a community have read into the information we had and the kind of moves we made, and then, but if you look back on some of the stuff that Upland's put out there as far as their kind of vision for the future, I don't think they ever really envisioned singular players like yourself. I think at my peak, I might have had 6,000, 7,000 properties or something. I think that they envision that, no, you're going to have 3 or 4 or maybe 5 properties, where we've just gone ballistic in the other direction. And maybe they haven't been clear in their terminology, or they put the information out there and we do with it as we see fit, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you're kind of right there. I think they never really thought that people would want to buy so many properties, and you know, they just never really told people not to do that, even though it probably wasn't the best decision.
Yeah, so recently I've dialed mine back as well. I think I'm 3,000 and something properties now, but I'm still looking to drop another 2,000. Just kind of slow and steady.
I think you can probably treasure hunt with 15 to 30 properties, and then apart from filling collections, I don't see a lot of reason to hold a large inventory of properties. It just really doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, now is a prime example of that too. We have the Winterland, Wonderland, or whatever they call it, season as far as decorating your properties with the structure ornaments. Back in the day, I went just ballistic buying up those, so I could decorate Midtown Terrace. Basically, every property that had over 300 properties in Midtown Terrace, I could decorate most of those with these kind of winter ornaments, Genesis ornaments, whatever the bloody hell it is. Now they put this crate system in where you got to move each little individual crate. And I'm just like, I may, if I could be bothered, move one crate to my primary residence and decorate that. But long gone are the days of me decorating the entire neighborhood or anything.
Yeah, it's like a gigantic hurdle with no reward. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, they've since brought in a new thing in the last week where if you decorate your building at the certain time of the year, you can go in the draw for prizes, and that's kind of some kind of functionality. But the amount of time, effort required to move all these bloody things is just mind blowing. And that was on the back of this blew my mind when this happened. I don't know how many structure ornaments I've got. It'd be over 300, and they just scattered them all over the freaking world. Here you go, just freaking everywhere.
Welcome to Upland.
Whoa. So I was on holidays in Japan at the time, and anytime we're on the train, I just move them onto my, I've got a structure and ornament showroom. And so I moved them all there, lined them up, and I've just got them all for sale. If they sell, they sell. But yeah.
Makes you scratch your head. It's like, what is the purpose of doing it like that? Didn't it take them more time to do it like that? You would think. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's one of those eventually things where it will be streamlined in future if we finally get paid transportation mechanics. There was, I think it was Laban he got a screen image of a drone flying over one of the cities holding a crate. So maybe that's going to be part of the future utility or something. Who knows? So I think that covers. Is there anything I'm forgetting as far as your early days, your entry into the space, that sort of stuff?
Oh, I think we touched on most of it. If we did forget anything, nothing's coming to mind right now.
All right, so that's all. That's the early days, and then there was kind of at least in yours and mine relationship, there's kind of a few pivotal moments there. One was the UDU was we came up with the whole Spark Train concept where we would go through and build out each other's properties. Well, at the time we were building out the public's properties in a kind of coordinated effort. Our kind of first big blow up and that's what kind of led to our kind of disassociation was, I guess it was kind of a miscommunication between how that all played out. I have a very bad habit, which is ongoing to this day, where I often put stuff out there and just expect that people know what the fuck I'm talking about, where 9 times out of 10, they got no goddamn clue whatsoever. So, and then I get frustrated because they don't pre-understand what I've put out there. So that kind of saw us part ways back in that day, was related to that and the whole building process.
Classic miscommunication. And then we just never resolved it properly.
Yeah, it got quite ugly back in the day, but we kind of, you know, I think as ugly as it did get, we did get together in a kind of private Zoom and kind of hash things out, and we kind of got past that. And that kind of, I kind of just forged ahead with what we were doing with the UDU, but that kind of led you to really kind of double down on what you had envisioned for the Sunset project. And I know I'll put in the show notes that you teamed up with Kaiser 12, who was another big player in that area, in that space. And that's, you guys did a whole bunch of like community engagements, giving away massive prizes, trying to get that whole system up and running as well. Maybe speak to, you know, yeah, as ugly as that got, there was some positives that came out of it, and you found a new direction, you found a new purpose, and, you know, kind of started forging your own path.
Yeah. So unfortunate that you and I fell out, and yeah, it is what it is. But we both started finding, well, you continued your success, and I found a new path, as you said, and we kind of had that last formal meeting where we both agreed to disagree, basically, and
yep.
it was mutual. So that was kind of the end of it, and that I thought that was fine. You know, it is what it is, and so I started, you know, kind of looking around, what do I do now? What's next? And me and Kaiser 12 started talking, and he had another YouTube channel at that time, and
that's right.
It was pretty successful YouTube channel, and I thought, hey, this guy's pretty cool, and I was watching his videos, and then we started talking, and it actually didn't start off as we were going to do Sunset. What we were doing was we were comparing San Francisco to Manhattan, and Manhattan just kept plugging away up and up and up, and San Francisco was kind of lagging behind as far as those floor prices. And we were talking back and forth, like, hey, we got to do something here, because he also had a lot of San Francisco properties, and we're like, hey, why is San Francisco lagging so much? So we were looking around, and at that time, Sunset was actually holding down all of San Francisco for the floor. Sunset was the cheapest properties available in San Francisco, and we said, well, that's no good, so let's turn it into a node. And then so we both just focused our efforts onto Sunset, and within a matter of a couple of weeks, that floor price in Sunset just started going up, and then of course all of San Francisco started rising with it, and we thought, wow, we're onto something here, let's keep going. And so it was actually Kaiser's idea to come up with the build contest. And so we went ahead and launched the Sunset Build Contest, and we did a couple of those build contests, but of course we had to start with the first one, and we were learning, experimenting. We didn't know exactly what we were doing, but we were able to learn from what you had done and other nodes had done, and we had a general idea of what we wanted to do. And of course we wanted the prices to go up, but we were also trying to build a node, and we started getting traction on we both had YouTube channels, so we both used our channels to promote that, and we started getting traction from people that were already there in San Francisco, in Sunset, who wanted to join a node where they already had properties. And we were also able to bring in people who weren't there from our YouTube channel. So it was kind of sweet, and it started to grow into a pretty substantial community pretty quickly. And I don't remember the exact numbers right now, but the contest idea was to build, you know, as many houses as you can in so many by this date, or I don't remember exactly what it was. And we had quite a few houses shoot up in that period of time. And of course we had nice prizes to encourage people to participate. And I'm proud of this. Kaiser and myself and a third, I'll call him a third partner, I won't name him. We all contributed to the largest prize in Upland history that I know of. So during our second build out contest, we gave out over 3 million UPICs, including a 2.1 million Upix grand prize.
Crazy,
To
yeah.
shout out to you. Yeah, shout out to Ulysses. He was the winner of that. And so that was really cool. It brought a lot of excitement, and buildings just kept popping up in Sunset. So we went with it until things kind of just got sour with Upland in general. So
yeah, well, I think that whole process where kind of a limited time frame to build as part of a coordinated push, and it's going to be, you know, prizes involved. We have seen lots of other people pick up that concept. I know Radish Head with Holliswood, his Holliswood node, he's done similar. I believe the Ninjas, the Hyde Park Ninjas, they do something similar like that. And a lot of these smaller node groups that are out there with their own Discords do similar kind of things internally. So I think as far as that kind of public push and public kind of involvement, that you were the first group to do that. Release it.
Yeah, and it was a bit of fun for everybody. They, you know, a lot of people had properties in Sunset already that they were just not developing at that time, and it was an encouragement to get them to start developing those, and instead of waiting on it. And of course, new people joined in also. And yeah, there was some periods of time where there was a ton of spark in Sunset, directly correlated to our build out.
Yeah, well, I think you and Portage Park at the time were kind of competing for the amount of spark that was involved in one go. And yeah, Portage Park, the numbers there, are they relatively the same size neighborhoods, 14,000-ish properties? I don't know if
they're pretty close. I don't remember the exact numbers. They're both really big neighborhoods. Yes.
Yes. So yeah, as we mentioned with our kind of personal stuff that we went through, it's never always puppies and rainbows. You're talking about people with different personalities. You're talking about like yourself with significant financial investments, different ideologies, you know, different expectations, this, that, and the other thing. And it's not all puppies and rainbows. At some point, that fun, jovial side, it did start to turn. Was there any kind of one thing that kind of turned that over, or was it a kind of death by 1,000 paper cuts? That's kind of my personal thing. Like, I'm a classic whiner. Every week I do a podcast where I whine about this, that, and the other thing, where I kind of just and it may be because I've reflected on this recently too. It may be the reason that, you know, I've had blow ups and I've whined about things, but pretty much 98% of what I've got in Upland is all house money based on crypto profits. So I'm not talking, you know, I didn't put, you know, 50,000 USD into this thing. Is there something there, or am I imagining that, or was there something else that, you know, I'm not really aware of that whole history of where things started to sour.
I'd say, you know, well, I'll start with the money, right? To me, it was a large amount of money, and definitely more than I wanted to lose.
Yep.
And I started seeing some things that made me think maybe it wasn't as sound of an investment as I had originally thought. So that made me want to pull back a bit. And then, you know, kind of the death by 1,000 paper cuts thing, just rubbed the wrong way one too many times, I guess I'll say.
Yeah, it was. I know, because there's been situation, and at that time, Upland started to crack down on dissent within the general community or whatever, where they're trying to increase the involvement of new players. And there was and there is still a lot of frustration out there from the well-established player base that, you know, we've been reading these roadmaps, we've been listening to these ideas and promises and whatnot, and we're saying, okay, well, when is this all going to happen? Was that part of it as well? And then we've seen the people that were banned from the community splintered off to form their own communities, and then that kind of vibe kind of fuels almost like an echo chamber of, you know, a turd storm or something. I don't know how you'd say it.
I would say, you know, it wasn't any one person or one particular event that made me decide that it was time to exit. I think, you know, just with my personal situation, and the way I saw things progressing wasn't exactly what I had envisioned, and maybe some promises that were made that didn't get fulfilled, and just that kind of thing. Just eventually it got to a point where I felt irresponsible leaving the money in. So it was just time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of reflected in your chart as well, where you got up to a peak there. So what's that? That's 19th of April 2022. And then, there's a fairly gradual taper off there where you can see that you're clearly starting to, you're starting to cash some out in the game, or at least pull back a bit. And then there's quite a big drop off there. And then you've kind of had another drop and then pretty plateaued from there. That was kind of the general aspect of how things started to go bad, but then things got really bad to the point, I believe, where, and this is where your kind of YouTube channel changed to this kind of almost guerrilla tactics thing where you'd put some information out there. And is that something that you did deliberately? Because if that's deliberate, it's an awesome, it's hilarious, it's awesome, it's very clever, like to get. I can remember because I'm not in the PT time zone, I miss out on a lot of that stuff. So I'll wake up and I'll try and catch up on the chat, and they'll be, oh, did you catch that latest DJ Shortz video? And I'll go over and check. Oh no, it's been gone. So yeah, it was. How was all that interplayed?
So you mentioned that I did the video with Idan.
Yeah.
And I think that video is a particular sore spot that Upland has with me. Not because of the content of the video, but because I put the video up and then took it down. And that was just me playing around with my channel. But I think they took that the wrong way. And I really didn't mean anything by it at the time. But then, fast forward, I felt bad. I felt like I should, I felt like I owed people information about what I was doing, because I have almost 100 referrals through my YouTube channel. 100 people signed up for Upland through my YouTube channel. And I put out a lot of content promoting Upland and promoting Sunset and just promoting Upland in general. So I felt like I owed it to people to even it out a bit. And then it just gradually turned into more and more of just degeneracy and me just having fun with it. And I had given up the idea that this channel would, my YouTube channel would be an Upland YouTube channel. I had given that idea up. So I just kind of crashed and burned it, as you may say. And almost like a comedy thing at this point.
Yeah, I think it's for people who don't, in air quotes, know you. I think some of those videos, they might be just like, what the hell? And I know some of those ones that I caught, you could tell that you're kind of half tongue in cheek with some of the stuff. But I think there was a mix of some truth and whatnot. You particularly have a unique personality where you're not afraid to say what's on your mind, or to go to places where other people might not be willing or comfortable to go. So yeah, I think that was a fun play there, but a lot of people would miss that vibe and just take it purely on face value.
Sure. And I get that. And I'm sure I've said some stupid things that I shouldn't have said, but it was mostly in jest. And if I did go too far and anybody was offended, I do apologize. Some of those, I'm sure I said some stupid things. So.
Oh, we've all said heinous shit out there, mate. I'd hate to see if somebody crawled through and clipped out some of the shit I've said, whether it be in public or private. Yeah, it is what it is. You try and do better and move on. Okay, so that was, you had one of the earliest, most popular YouTube channels, significantly invested in the game, significantly invested in the community, kind of felt that you were overexposed almost and looking to pull back. And I believe maybe was it that pulling that Idan video down that got you removed from the UCM broadcasters or was it other stuff? And then that kind of snowballed with these other videos to the point where, you know, the list is long. Banned from the Upland General, banished from the community, name muddied here, there, and everywhere by all sundries. And I'm not completely innocent in that. Like I said, if people could screenshot some of the shit that I've said at different times, it wouldn't be nice. Was that all part of the snowball where things kind of got really, really bad?
You know, that's a good question. I don't really know the answer to that, to be fair. You know, I think once I got kicked out of the UCN, they were much more willing to take those next steps with kicking me out of this, kicking me out of that, kicking me out of everything they could possibly kick me out of, right? Yeah. And the reason that they booted me out of the UCN, I honestly don't know. I really don't. And most of the other stuff I honestly don't know either, to be frank with you. I really it's just like a blur, most of it. I don't even know what happened and who said what or who I offended. I couldn't even tell you. To be fair, it's confusing for me. But yeah, I really don't think I did anything like overly egregious or you know, obscene. Like I definitely didn't do anything criminal, you know. And I don't know where that line is that I crossed, but somebody thought that I crossed some line, obviously, and you know, it just kept escalating.
Yeah, it may have been, like, again, I'm not fully aware, but I know that in general, Upland seems to, they put up with that sort of stuff to a certain point and they either get canned, but it's when things start to become personal or that they really kind of, well, that's enough of that. And that goes two ways, of course, as well. I know from our history, like if you look back on some of the chat we had at the time, you know, it's things get nasty quickly and that kind of has its own snowball. But then if you step away and you look at it again a week later, you'd think, well, what the hell was all of that? Was just completely unnecessary, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
Right. And you know, I was frustrated. You know, sometimes support wouldn't get back to me or wouldn't give me a satisfactory answer. I'm sure, you know, that played into it too. So just probably along those a million paper cuts, I bet they kind of feel the same way, you know.
Yeah. Now you did try and pull out. I know you were actively trying to sell your account, and we've seen dozens of players do this, sell their entire account. I've bought entire players' accounts back when there was a kind of gray period, but you were doing it the legitimate way, saying, look, here's all my stuff. Here's what I think it's worth, or here's what it says it's worth on the open markets. Here's what I'm willing to sell it at. Send me a DM.
Yeah. And, oh, I don't know if I should say this. I hope he doesn't hate me, but I did that after Dizzy Deesky bought Invenom's account. So yeah. that I thought, you know, this is okay to do. And I just went ahead and did it like that. And the reason I wanted to sell all of it at once is because, well, people who are around saw what happened to the floor in San Francisco. And I knew that would happen because I was so concentrated in San Francisco, and there's only one way for the price to go if I'm just going to unload thousands of properties. So I knew that would happen. And I thought it would be in my best interest and everybody else's best interest also if I just do a deal with one person or a group or whatever, you know. I was open to,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just transparent, like this is what I'm doing and this is who's doing it with me, and I wasn't trying to do anything shady.
Yeah.
And yeah, it never materialized for whatever reason. And then that's kind of when you look at my chart, that's kind of after trying to sell my account for several months, that's when I finally said, okay, I'll just do it one by one. And you could see that in the chart.
Yeah, I think that Dizzy Invenom kind of deal that got a lot of people's noses out of joint because it was kind of, it seemed like a backdoor deal. I know some of the messages I had with Invenom after that deal went down, because, you know, Invenom was there at the forefront of the the creation of the UDU concept. It was Balboa Terrace and Midtown Terrace. He had a bunch of Midtown Terrace properties. You would think, well, I would think if I was going to sell my entire account, I'd say, hey, Ben, do you want these Midtown Terrace properties back? Where instead he just sold them all for 1 UPX or whatever it was. So I said, well, what the fuck, man? And he's like, oh, I totally forgot about that. I'm like, come on, mate. So that was kind of the end of that for me. But what that deal did was I think it brought everything to light that had been such a grey period as far as buying out accounts. Like I said, I'd bought out several accounts. I'd bought UPX on the off kind of platform system. That was rife as far as, collection swapping and all of that. I had very big, still today, well-known players reach out to me and say, hey, I've got this guy who's trying to sell his UPX. Would you buy it for crypto? And they kind of manage those deals on the back end. But that whole Envenom Dizzy Disky thing brought everything to light. And I think it helped clarify what was a very gray area. So now we do still see accounts being bought out, but yeah, it is public. It's all done in game. I know for myself, probably, well, it was actually when I was in Japan as well. I'm kicking myself now because the prices have plummeted, but I kind of FOMO'd into an S1R racing car, like the original ones. I paid big money in UPX plus a Bitcoin component on top of it, which was, of course, done outside of the platform. And then I didn't even think of it at the time because I was just FOMO into this deal. But then I kind of reached out internally to the team, and then I paid community pool fees and whatnot. So that's, as kind of greasy as that was back in the day, it did help to clarify things as far as what you could and couldn't do.
Yeah, it was all a gray area. And, in crypto is completely permissionless. You don't have to ask anybody anything. Yeah. And my view was, it's all on the blockchain. If anybody wants to find this stuff out, it's not that difficult. So might as well just do it openly.
Yep. Yes. So that's, I don't know if you want to get into this. It's entirely up to you. Like, I believe as part of that, you're trying to cash out system. You had some sort of issue with Tilia, and then there's miscommunication between stuff that Upland was telling you or what Tilia, and basically, from what I believe now, the situation is now that you are not only banned and kind of, well, jailed and banned in Upland, which restricts what you can do as far as selling your properties, but you're also kind of blocked from selling your properties through Tilia. So you're kind of caught in no man's land. I don't know how much you want to go into that because, again, I'm not aware of what actually went down.
So Tilia sent me an email out of the blue, and at first I thought it was scammers. I thought it was spam because it was written unprofessionally, I'll say, kind of sloppily. It looked like it was just thrown together haphazardly,
which is a classic crypto scammer tactic. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. It looked fake. Fake. It turned out it was actually from Tilia, but I just deleted it. And I didn't even think anything of it. Like, okay, somebody got my email. And then they sent me another one a couple weeks later. And I thought, yeah, usually the scammers don't send another email, or at least they try a different tactic. So I looked into it a little bit closer this time and discovered it was a real email. Thought, okay. So I, and what Tilia was, like I said, it was written confusingly. And what they asked me was specifically about the quick movement of properties. So they were curious about properties that I minted in Los Angeles and sold for USD. And they called it quick movement. And the question that they asked me was, do I expect that kind of activity to continue? And so I told them no. I said, no, I don't expect that type of activity to continue. And they got back to me and they said, you've got a week, and you can see this on my chart as well. That's that next dip down. They said, you've got a week, we're shutting down your account. I said, wow, okay. So I cashed out, as efficiently as I could. and yeah, that one down
So
there.
that might be
That
there,
was
yeah.
that would be there. So I was under the gun. I was like, I do not want to leave this money stuck in here because I don't think this is a threat. I think this is a promise. I think they're going to shut the account down, and they did. And so I didn't say anything about it for a while, and then I started, reaching out to Tilia again, saying, "Hey, can you turn this back on?" I let like a month go by. Hey, can you let this go by? Can you turn this back on? And they were slow to respond, and then eventually they just stopped responding altogether. So then I got frustrated, and I just walked away from everything Upland for a while, and I came back and I said, well, what can I do? And so I let people know through my videos, and it didn't seem like people believed me, or they just didn't take it seriously, or I don't know. I thought people would have some sort of reaction to that, but they didn't really have any reaction to that. So I said, well, I got to try and do something. And I said, well, let me see if I can still put properties for sale for USD. And so I could still sell them for USD. And well, let me rephrase that. I could still put them up for sale for USD.
Yes.
Nobody was able to buy them, which a lot of people know that now. So I said, well, how can I get people's attention? So I went to all the tier 1 cities, bought the cheapest UpX property, waited my 3 days, and then put them all up for sale for $3. And then sure enough, that got a lot of people's attention. And then Upland jailed me for that. They said that it was market manipulation. So I was in violation of the TOS. And I didn't even bother, responding to them, what yeah. So that's where it's at. And yeah, Upland hasn't returned an email in 2 months, and Tilia is past 3 months now.
So that was the classic floor lock situation. Just want to dial that back a little bit to unpack something there. You said the justification for getting blocked from Tilia was quick movement of properties. What was the what does that mean? What's quick movement of properties?
Ben, I could not tell you. They said that I minted properties in April and sold them for USD in May. They didn't give me any specific dates. They didn't give me any specific properties. They didn't give me any other information. It just said quick movement. That's all the information that I have. And they did not provide any other information when I asked.
But that's a well-established tactic all through the community where, especially in city releases, people, myself including, buy up the UPX floor or mint up the UPX floor, wait the 3 days, and sell for under mint in USD.
And that's why I was surprised that people weren't having any reaction to my Tilia getting shut off, because in my mind, that's a giant red flag that everything is now out the window. They're turning accounts off.
So is that where kind of the conspiratorial aspect started to kick in, where, okay, this is not something that's been flagged on the system. This is like almost a personal, like focusing in on your account.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As I said, I know it's a touchy subject and you're saying what you can. I don't know. I legitimately don't know the history based on, what I do know is third-hand conversations based on, or did you see that DJ Shortz video? Yada, yada, yada. All right. So you find yourself now, you still have, what do you still got? Like still 200 something properties, still, you said you got a bunch of NFLPA legits, block explorers. Are you just going to ride that out? I guess at this point, you got no chance what you can do. You're forced to ride it out. But are you, assuming all of that was turned back on, are you looking to just, okay, I'm just going to sell out and just completely move on? Or would you just sit there? Like, what would be the play forward here?
I don't know what Upland could say to me that would make me not want to cash out at this point, but I would have to imagine if I had access that the first thing I would want to do is liquidate it. you know, is I really enjoyed Upland. I had a great time, and I really, you know, it was a lot of fun for me, but it's a bit scary to know that they're willing to do things like that basically on a whim, as far as I'm concerned. So I might want to keep a little bit of it, but why would I want to stay? I don't know. I can't think of a reason.
So yeah, and yeah, I think that whole floor lockup point, that's where a lot of noses got put out of joint. But you would just basically, it's like I can imagine myself. There's a big red button. Hey, what does this button do? You know, can I list this properly? Oh, this button does actually do something, and then away you go. Yeah, okay. So
yeah, I didn't do anything. I wasn't accused of anything except for quick movement of properties, and I didn't do anything that I hadn't been doing for years.
Yeah, and like I said, as far as quick movement of properties, well, that's what everybody does. That's the classic move. So yeah. All right. Well, you're wanting to move on. I would imagine, just from a personal thing, you just want to, you know, get this resolved, put it all behind you. What would a realistic and satisfying resolution look like to you? Would it be like being able to just completely cash out, or being able to negotiate a complete buyout with somebody else that then could be facilitated? Or, you know, how could this be achieved, do you think?
That's a good question. I've been thinking about it. I hadn't thought of a complete buyout. I'm not sure what opportunities exist, and then also I have that 20 spark sitting there that you know, that always is in the back of my mind. So I was kind of, you know, thinking, do I wait for Sparklet? But you know, at this point I have very limited access to my account, so it doesn't really matter. But I'm open to ideas. As far as a resolution goes, what makes sense in my mind is somehow a conversation is arranged between myself and a community manager, probably like an X1, and kind of if he has any information to give to me, or I can give him any information to make the alignment get back into line so I can get access to my account in Upland, and Tilia turns back on my service, and then I'm free to buy and sell as I please. I would be happy with that. I think that's, you know, at least then I have the ability to access my account, and if I was able to find a deal with somebody to liquidate all or most of the assets too, I think at this point I'd be happy to do that as well.
So some kind of mediation, looking to kind of streamline the process or something.
I would assume. I mean, I don't think they're out of the blue just gonna turn it back on. You know, and they're not communicating with me, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I wrote a couple of points down there to unpack as well. Sparklet, yeah, I didn't even think of that. Like, if your Sparks are locked up, but we do know Sparklet, it is going to a crypto thing, so there's a swag of potential money, like in real life money, just sitting there that you, I don't know, I would imagine there's going to have to be a KYC process. With you being blocked from Tilia and banned in Upland, does that impact on your KYC status, or I got no idea?
I wouldn't think so. I think I'm still KYC verified. I just don't have the ability to use the account.
Well, hopefully at least that, once that whole Sparklet situation comes out, hopefully if that's something you're willing to pursue, that you can get that out and do with it as you will. Because that is what crypto is supposed to be all about after all.
Yeah.
The other thing I wrote down, which I remember this is something that raised my eyebrows back, you know, when there was talk about you trying to sell out your account, and then there's news DJ's just bought 500 block explorers or something crazy like that. Well, what's the mentality there? Like you're looking to get out. Is that because you are selling stuff in UPX and you got this massive pile of UPX, and again, it's burning a hole in your pocket? What the hell am I going to do with all this?
Well, that's part of it. But shout out to Thank Me Later. I was looking at his account and I said, you know what? Before I leave, I'm gonna get more block explorers than thank me later. And that was right when uh so I think I bought one more than he had. I don't remember. It wasn't much more, but that was me just being petty towards thank me later mostly.
On the way out the door. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Nice. All right. So yeah, so that's kind of the full spectrum of the journey. Now you're kind of in this limbo sort of situation, looking to move on. Just as we wrap up, as you move forward, is there any other Web3 projects that you're looking into? I would imagine you're still involved in the crypto space. As you do look to move forward, any hints, tips, not financial advice, do your own research out there?
You know, I keep my eye out all the time, pretty much every day. I'm looking to see what's new and what people are talking about. And as far as Web3, I think at this point it's anybody's guess who's gonna take off and who's gonna get left behind. I don't know any better than anybody else. You know, obviously you've got Sand and Mana and Gala, and then, you know, right there in that conversation is probably Upland. And those are probably the four big metaverse plays to look at right now. And, you know, the first three, apart from Upland, are pretty much coin plays. You pretty much buy the coin, and then NFTs are like a secondary option. And who knows? You could play the coins, you could play the NFTs. It's hard to say. I think they could all do well. I think they could all flop. There could be regulation that comes out tomorrow that sends them all to zero.
Yeah.
And then as far as crypto goes, you know, I'm a big believer in the top 10. I think most of those are pretty safe bets at this point. Ethereum, Solana, definitely, you know, I think are going to have solid futures. And then for like a small cap coin, I like the Richard Hart ecosystem. I like what he's doing with he has Hex, and he has created his own chain, and there's a coin called Pulse or Pulse X.
Yep.
You can get it very cheap right now, way under a penny. Like I think it's like 401 is the current price or thereabouts. So you can get a big bag of those cheap. And his first coin Hex went to the moon, you know, did hundreds of X's and had crazy returns. And I think his new coin could do something potentially similar. Not financial advice, but that's one that I've got my eye on closely.
All right, mate. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for being willing to have a chat, you know, to look past, like I said, our very complex and at times murky history, and just being willing to being, you know, open and candid about your current struggles and what you're going through. Wish you the very best of success for a resolution. I hope that, you know, some kind of mediation or way forward can be achieved. I think that'd be best for all parties involved. And yeah, just want to reiterate to say thank you for having a chat.
Absolutely, Ben. Great to talk to you, and thanks for having me on.
We'll leave it at that. Thanks, everyone. Catch you later. If you have an Upland, NFT, or Metaverse product, service, or event to promote, or you're just someone engaged in Web3 who'd like to have a chat, send me, Ben68, a DM on Discord, or drop a YouTube comment to discuss and secure your spot. This Metatainment production is brought to you today by the Samurai Aquatics and Decor Metaventure, one of the premier and original destinations for Upland UGC map assets in the Upland Metaverse. Samurai Aquatics is thrilled to offer an introductory price on selective items for a limited time only this November and December. First up, glide into the festive spirit with the magnificent Samurai Sleigh. Normally priced at 34,000 UPX, this season's must-have flex piece is available to you for just 29,000 UPX or 25 USD. And for those of you out there looking to add a touch of romantic style to your Upland spaces, the Love Heart Jacuzzi is making a splash. Regularly $15, it can be yours for the introductory price of only 12 USD. This is a USD only item and is the perfect asset for you to pretend to warm up those chilly Upland evenings all by yourself or with your special someone or someone's. Ooh la la. And lastly, don't miss the full set of 5 Christmas spirals, a colorful addition to any of your structures or blue pixels in the Upland Metaverse. Now at an exceptionally value of 90,000 UPX or 75 USD, down from the regular price of 126,000 UPX or $126. To reserve your set of Christmas spirals, you have to send a direct message to me, Ben68, on Discord. Sale is on now at 30 Aqua Vista Way in Midtown Terrace, San Francisco, and will expand to our other showrooms in the coming weeks. Remember, these exceptional deals are only available in November and December. それでは、失礼いたします。